Hi, I'm Paul Niven, president of OKRsTraining.com, and today I'd like to speak with you about porridge, about beds. I think you know where this is going. We all know the story of Goldilocks, that most unwanted and pickiest of house guests. But one thing you have to say about Goldilocks, she knew how to make effective choices, right? Where it couldn't be too hot or too cold, had to be just right. And it turns out that philosophy applies to OKRs as well, specifically your cadence for developing, analyzing, and updating your OKRs throughout the year. And so what I'd like to share with you in this short video are some tips on helping you develop the just right cadence for your OKRs program. So, like a lot of things when it comes to OKRs, cadence really is typically quarterly for many organizations. And that comes directly from the Google playbook. Of course, Google, very early adopter of OKRs. And so a lot of the things that most organizations will do will be consistent with what Google did. But of course, we have to question whether a quarterly cadence is right for your organization. Just because Google does it doesn't mean it's right for you. So how do you determine the right cadence for your organization? First of all, let's look at the options. And now, some organizations will adopt what we call a hyperactive OKR cycle, and that's a pretty strong word, but we simply mean that they're updating their OKRs very rapidly, sometimes monthly. And of course, the thinking there is logical. Shorter cycles mean agility, quick pivots when necessary, making those adjustments. But in reality, there can be some real negatives to a very rapid OKR cycle, including the fact that you're simply spending possibly more time actually developing goals than executing. 30 days goes by pretty quickly. And your OKRs can lack depth. If you're only looking 30 days out, of course, you're going to be looking at that window of what's right in front of you, and you're not thinking about longer term or transformative or stretch OKRs. And that's a problem. And also, if you are thinking about really stretch OKRs and trying to apply that to a 30-day window, that's got the potential for burnout because, again, if you're asking people to develop a really stretch OKR and execute it in 30 days and do it again the month after that and the month after that, that's asking a lot. So burnout is definitely a potential problem. Imagine a chef here who's checking on the souffle every 2 minutes. It's never going to rise. And OKRs are similar in that they need time to develop. So monthly OKRs may not be the answer. What about a longer cycle for OKRs? And some organizations will develop OKRs on a semi-annual or even annual basis. And now the thinking there again makes sense because a longer time period allows for bigger strategic bets, being more ambitious, but of course there are downsides there as well. Number one, of course, we have changing conditions throughout the year. We've all heard the acronym VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So if we set goals on January 1st, we can't expect the world to be the same on December 31st. We've got to be able to make changes throughout the year. We can lose engagement. Again, if we're setting goals and not looking at them regularly, there's a chance to lose momentum. People just aren't as concerned about the goals. And so we lose engagement with the program, and that's a big problem as well. And finally, at the end of the day, OKRs are about the accountability of execution. You're developing these OKRs, it's your hypothesis on what you need to do well and how you're going to track success. Well, accountability can suffer if, again, you're only looking at your OKRs once or twice a year. We call this a set it and forget it mentality, and it's a big problem with OKR. So that's probably not the answer as well. So, what is the just right balance for OKRs? Well, for a lot of organizations, it is that quarterly cycle. 90 days does tend to be long enough to do some pretty big transformative things, but also offering the opportunity to bring agility into play. It also aligns with a lot of organizations' regularly reporting rhythms. So it makes sense, but not for everyone. We see a lot of organizations adopting what we call trimesters or 4 month periods. That extra breathing room of another month really gives you, again, some time and ability to really tackle big or maybe more strategically important OKR. So for some organizations, trimesters make sense. Also, we see a lot of organizations adopting what we call a hybrid approach where they might develop annual OKRs at the company level, which are, of course, monitored monthly or quarterly. But then at the department, team, business unit level, they've got more agile OKRs in the form of quarters or trimesters. So, how do you determine what your ideal cadence is? Well, a few ideas here. Number one, just look at your business cycle. Retailers, for example, we know that they amass a lot of their sales towards the end of the year, so that it could impact the cadence they use for OKRs. Technology companies could map it to product release cycles. So look at your business rhythm and determine what the most appropriate cadence might be based on that. Assess your decision-making speed. How often do your leaders get together and reassess priorities, make strategic decisions? Again, you probably already have a rhythm in your organization for this sort of thing, and you want to make sure that your OKRs are culturally aligned. Gauge the team bandwidth. Again, if you're gonna be making radical new OKRs every month, what effect will that have on the team? Whereas if you have longer cycles, what are the potential problems there that we talked about earlier? And you have to correct that balance and determine what's right for you. Finally, consider testing and learning. Maybe experiment with different cadences at different part of the organizations as it's a lot of people talk about a crawl, walk, run approach to OKR. So maybe as you're in the crawl and walk phase, test different cadences with different parts of the organization to see what works best. At the end of the day, what you want to do here is make sure you're balancing vision and execution. You've set a strategy. You want to make sure you execute it with OKRs. So annual OKRs can make a lot of sense in that they're providing that context for OKRs throughout the organization. Quarterly or trimester based OKRs for teams and departments who can really focus on day-to-day execution. And then regular reviews are ensuring that you're bringing agility and accountability into the process. So some key takeaways to think about here. Flexibility. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Just because you read that OKRs typically have a quarterly cadence doesn't mean it's right for you. You can be flexible in your approach. That balance between agility and stability is really key. So you want to be able to monitor things on an ongoing basis, but you don't want to be changing constantly. And then just continuous improvement. Regularly adjust your approach. Again, OKRs are like any other major change initiative. You're learning as you go here, so it's perfectly okay to make course corrections along the way. Well, that's it for the short video. Thanks very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you'd like to ask me any questions, you see my email address there. It's paul@okrstraining.com, and you can visit our website, okrstraining.com, for more resources on OKRs. Thanks again.